Okay, so before we get started, let me share you the syllabus as well that we are going to cover. So this is the latest syllabus on Selenium 4 that we are going to cover, including Docker, Jenkins, AWS integration. All these things will be covered. And like this is where we are going to start with, like Selenium 4, we're going to study about the brief history and the architecture. And then we're going to see a couple of features of Selenium 4. So this configuration, we are going to do it today itself. And then like you guys will be starting, whosoever is joining new will be starting with the core Java. So complete in-depth core Java will be covered. And then we'll be looking at new features of Selenium 4. We're going to cover all basics to advanced topics on Selenium, whatever that is required for automation. And then it's a huge content. So then we'll be learning XPath, CSS, all these techniques in depth so that you should be able to handle all elements easily over the web page. Any complex dynamic element, you should be able to handle it easily. Right, then there are some new addition in Selenium 4 related to Chrome Dev tool protocol features. So this is what we'll be looking at. And then we'll be learning your TestNG framework in depth. Then we're going to do a lot of integrations like extend report, then database connectivity, Excel reading, Log4j, Java Mail API, properties, and we'll be working with Selenium Grid, Docker, Jenkins, Maven, AWS Cloud, and then we'll be doing 2 live projects. So this is what we are going to cover in the next 3.5 months of the duration, right? So anything you want to ask before we get started? I guess someone's camera is turned on. Rahul, your camera is turned on. You can turn it off. Thanks. Okay, any questions before we get started? Anything that you want to discuss?
Sona here.
Yeah.
I missed the mail, the initial mail that you have sent where there is access and the password that was given.
Okay, so yeah, I'll gonna forward it to you. Just drop me an email on my mail ID. So my mail ID is trainer@way2automation.com. In case of any questions, any queries, you can directly reach out to me on this mail ID. Or if or you can even ping me on WhatsApp and let me know your mail ID on WhatsApp, and I'll check the details and send it to you. Okay.
Okay.
Any more questions, guys? Before
one more question: is there any off on next weekend or the next to next weekend?
Okay, so yeah, this is an important question because like next weekend is like 24th and 25th, I guess, right? So 25th is Christmas. So and then we have, I guess,
31st and 1st.
31st and 1st. So that is also an important week. So yeah, you guys let me know. I mean, like if you guys are available next weekend, like we can do it both the days and can keep 31st and 1st off. Or
yeah, for me it's okay. I don't know about others.
Yeah, I mean, because
31st
off 4th and 25 is okay. Let's keep 31st off.
31st and 1st off. Okay. Yeah, because these 2 days are like people are mostly celebrating. So we can keep 31st and 1st off, and we're going to do the sessions on 24th and 25th. So in case someone is not available on 25th, you can also go through the recordings. So I guess majority is available, right? On 25th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do it on 24th, 25th, and 31st and 1st we can keep it off.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah,
one question.
WhatsApp group, just ping me on WhatsApp. I'll add you in the group.
Rahul, can you hear me?
Yes, Manish. Yeah.
Okay. The question is like, what is the duration of this complete course, Java and Selenium?
So it's 3.5 months. It's going to take at least.
Okay, and that includes Selenium as well, right?
Yeah, including Selenium and Java both. So you can say approximate 6 weekends for Java and 7 weekends for Selenium.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Well, when will you start the Java batch?
From next weekend. very next weekend itself.
Okay. So today I joined the rest assured class, so that was a great experience.
Okay.
The tutor was good, like Karthik.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks.
And Java would be
Okay.
by you or somebody else?
So Rahul, it is great. We are taking everything with one platform.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That is what a very unique concept that you can learn all the automation related stuff, and you can join these batches a number of times you want.
Yeah, this is great. We have to think we need to learn Selenium apart from we have to learn the rest assured, and we have to pay every time. But this is the good concept, I think.
Yeah.
Of course, no, that is unique actually, and is really helpful actually when we started telling people. Yeah. And how about this Java course? So who would be dealing it?
So again, there's a instructor, a different instructor for Java. His name is Ajay. So he's already working as an automation lead, and he has already taken so many Java batches over here. So he also have a sound knowledge in Selenium. So the Java concept that he'll be teaching, you're gonna feel it like a practical way. You're gonna relate it with Selenium, so you should be able to understand it easily.
No, I think now I'll miss you because I have bought a course in Udemy.
Okay, yeah, that has my Java lectures as well.
Years actually. So I thought I would be directly talking to you for any doubts or something. So I may that
So don't worry. I mean, whatever Java that you'll be covering in the core Java session, so I'll be practically implementing those topics in Selenium.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So any more questions before we can get started? Okay, so in that case, we can start. So let us do a little recap of what we covered yesterday. We have seen that Selenium is not a tool. It's an open source automation framework or an API, right? We cannot install Selenium. We just need to configure it. And there's a prerequisite to get started with Selenium is that you need to have JDK, and the best supported version is 8 or 11. And then you need to have Eclipse, IDE, an editor, and then Selenium jars. So that is what the only configuration you need for Selenium. And then we have also discussed that there are a couple of components in Selenium. One is ID, one is RC, one is WebDriver, and one is grid. Now, what is the difference in these components? What is ID? What is RC? What is WebDriver, grid? So IDE, it's like a record and play feature. So every automation tool like UTP, UFT, RFT, every automation tool has got something record and play. UFT has invested a huge amount in record and play, but in Selenium, this record and play is a very small component. It's like a plugin to your browser. Initially, when Selenium 1 was started, Selenium 2 was there. This plugin was only available for Firefox. But Selenium 3 onwards, you're going to see now this plugin is available in Chrome browser as well. So Selenium IDE looks something like this. So if let's say this is your plugin Selenium IDE. So you can click on record a new test in a new project. Here you're going to give the project name. Let's say I'm going to name it as Google project. Click on OK. Here I'll be giving some URL, let's say http google.com, and I'm going to click on start recording. So you can see a browser launched, and over here it is written Selenium IDE is recording. So whatever action that I'm going to perform right now, let's say I'll click on Selenium, and then I'm going to click on Selenium, and then I'm going to close the browser. So you can see all the steps are recorded over here. Then I can click on stop recording, and I'll save this test with the name as, let's say, Google test. Click on OK. And then I can go over here and click on export. So I can click on export as well, or even if you want to run it from here. So you get an option, run all test, run current test. So if you click on this, you can see whatever action that you have performed will be repeated over here. So let's see. It's taking time. Let me try running it again. So let me stop it and try running the current test. Okay, maybe some issue is there in the plugin, so I may need to reinstall it. Because with latest Selenium 4 version, there are some changes in the architecture as well. So I guess it's broken, so it's not working. Let me try doing it again once more. Okay. And you can see, so here it clicked over here and then it clicked over here, right? So all these actions are successfully executed and only the last two steps are not executed. So if we try to manually click on it, it's not working. So there are a couple of drawbacks in Selenium IDE. This is, I mean, not a good recommendation to play around with this record and play. Only people who get started initially, they try to do some record and play. And majorly what we do is, let's say if I stop this test, it's already stopped, I guess. And if I go over here and click on this, I'm gonna get an option of export. I'm gonna click on export. And I'll be exporting the test script in a form of Java JUnit because we are working with Java. So other languages are also available, JavaScript, C#, Python, Ruby. So when you click on export, and you're gonna give some name over here, I'll go to desktop and say Google test. And I'm gonna click on save. So here, if you look at this particular file, you're gonna see code that is being written over here to launch Google browser, to type Selenium, then to click on it, and then to navigate to a different website. So all these actions that we have actually done through record and play is you can find the code for it. So normally what people do, they generally copy paste this code, they copy it, and then they paste it in Eclipse over here, like as it is over here. Right? And then there are some imports that you need to do. We're gonna discuss about it, but you can see no issues over here. And if I try to run this now, it is going to perform the same action. We need to do minor, we need to add minor weights because you can see after typing Selenium, it errored out. So there are some exceptions, like no such element exception. So it is unable to find this particular element. This is because there's a weight issue. If I add a little weight, then it will wait till the time this element showed up and it will gonna click on this and then it will gonna click on this. So there is a little weight required. So that weight, I mean, everything you're not gonna get it from record and play. So there is some little updation you have to do it on your own as well. Like if I'm talking about weight, don't worry about what code that I'm writing right now. I'll be explaining it once we get started with Selenium. So if I'm going to add some weight like this, duration of seconds. So I'm adding just 10 seconds wait. So this 10-second wait will gonna help me in fixing the issue that we are facing right now. But don't worry about what code that I've written. And this code is seriously very, very simple code. So again, see, it clicked over here and then it clicked on this. And then see, everything successfully executed. And the browser is closed, right? So there is actually a wait issue over here. So this issue is not detected by your Selenium IDE. So Selenium IDE will gonna give you just a built-in code that you can use it in your project. That is it. But this is only for one single page. What if you have a whole big website to automate? A website, something like, let's say if I go to Flipkart, Amazon, you can see thousands of functionalities are there on this website. So can you imagine you can do record and play through IDE and get scripts for all these functionalities? It is not going to work. And not just this, there are hundreds of pages over here. If you mouse over on this, you can see hundreds of pages. You cannot achieve automation of these through the record and play feature. The record and play feature of Selenium is a very small feature. So ultimately, we have to rely on the coding part only. Because see, if we are using IDE, at times when we are using Selenium, as I have mentioned yesterday, that Selenium is just 25% in your entire project. So over here, you can see Selenium is just 25%. And these are rest of the integrations that we have to do with Selenium. So let's say if I go over here, this is the data that I've entered in the website. I've entered Selenium, right? This is my test data. So normally we don't hard code the test data over here. We read it from an external file. And that external file could be a text file, could be an Excel file. So normally we maintain the test data in an Excel file. Now it is not a task of Selenium to do reading and writing from Excel. So for that, we need to include another library in our project, which is created by a third party organization named Apache. So they have created this POI API. Like Selenium is an API, POI is another API. So if you go over here, let's say if I take you to one of the website and search for POI, then you're gonna see Apache POI, Java API to access Microsoft format files. So in case you want to do reading, writing with Excel, Word, PowerPoint, programmatically, you need this particular jar file. So if you click over here, you see jar file, you click on this and you download this jar. So once you download it, the way that we have added Selenium jar, you'll be adding POI jar now. So you're just going to right click, say build path, add external archives, and then add this jar file. And now this jar file will going to give you collection of classes, methods, which is already developed. You just need to call those classes and then you need to do reading and writing. Because it's not Selenium task to do reading, writing. Reading and writing of Excel will be done with the help of POI API, which Selenium IDE cannot handle, right? All integration Selenium IDE cannot do because it's just a very small plugin. So not just this, let's say I've written a couple of lines of code over here. Maybe when I automate the entire website, I may end up writing 10,000 lines of code. So when I'm executing that code, it may gonna take, let's say, 3 to 4 hours to complete the test execution. Now for those 3 to 4 hours, will I gonna sit in front of my laptop and I'll be watching all the actions are happening correctly or not? I'm not going to sit in front of my laptop, right? Otherwise, I could have tested it manually. So how will I make sure once the execution is completed after 4 hours, everything is successfully executed or not? How will I make sure about that? That
From
each
the
and
reports?
sorry, how?
From the reports?
From the reports. From the reports as well, but at times reports may gonna give you a summary, like a brief overview of what all test cases are passed, what all test cases
Logs.
Exactly.
Asserts.
From logs. Assert will gonna validate. Like you can validate each and every action. That's true. But you need to maintain some logs as well. So for each and every action that the script has clicked on the link, then it has entered the username, it has entered the password. Along with that, it should print current timestamp. Like at this particular minute, this particular hour, this particular second, this particular day, the script has clicked on this button. So logs are something like this. Let me show to you and through my current project. Let's say if I talk about any project. So logs generally looks like this. So this is one of the log files. See. So each and every information is tracked. And which class was there, which method was there, which package is there, test execution started at this particular time. and then some files loaded, browser launch, it navigated to this particular website, clicking on this element, finding some element, clicking on that element, typing in an element, and entering the value as this, entering the value as last name this. So each and every action is being recorded. Now, this thing is not done with the help of Selenium. For this, again, we need to rely on a different third-party API, which is called as Log4j API. API, as in this is also a jar file. So same place where you have added, you search for POI, just search for Log4j, and you're going to get a jar file. Go over here, click on this, and download this. See, you got a Log4j jar file. Now, what you need to do, just include this as well. Right click, say build path, add external archives, and add this. That's it. So one by one, you need to add so many jar files. Now, maybe you are keeping your data not in Excel, you want to read it from database. So for database, again, Selenium will not help. You need to add a JDBC API. So your vendors like SQL, MySQL, Oracle, MongoDB, they provide their own APIs. They provide their own jar files to connect to the database. Right? So you got a jar file for this. Now, once your test execution is over, maybe a report is generated. Now you want to send that report to your test manager, to your let's say development managers, right, to your leads. But now test execution is taking 4 to 5 hours. So maybe during your production hours, you're not doing that test execution. So you have executed the test suite when you are leaving from office to your home, right? So test execution, once the 4-hour execution is done, now you want to send out automated email, but it is something like somewhere like 3 a.m. in the night. So what will happen once the test case execution is done, a report is generated, automatically the report will gonna get attached to your email, and it will be sent out to all your test manager, test lead, whichever you have kept in the recipients. So everyone will gonna receive the email with the test results. So they can directly look at the test results. So that thing is done with a separate API, which is called as a Java Mail API. So this is another jar file, right? So these things Selenium IDE cannot handle, because these things are handled using the Java concept and only basic core Java concept, right? So don't worry about this code as well. This code is very, very simple. Once we get started with Selenium, you'll find it very easy. This is just a method we are calling from a class. So you just need to know which method you need to call. All methods are already inbuilt. For everything, for all these things, there are different classes, different methods. You just need to add their library, call their class, create the object of the class, call the method. That's it. And you should be able to do it easily. Right? Now, we have something called as Maven. Now, what is Maven? Can anyone tell me what is Maven?
Yeah, it's a build tool.
Build management tool.
It's a build management tool.
Help to structure our project.
Mm-hmm. Anything
And
else?
that we integrate with
The
we
project
can integrate it with GitHub and Jenkins.
Mm-hmm. Apart from build tool,
It's got the core pom.xml, which will download all the dependencies required in the project automatically.
Build come dependency management tool. Now, what are dependencies? These jar files are called as dependencies. Your project is dependent on these jars, right? So these are called as dependencies. Now, how Maven is going to manage it, we are going to look at this today itself. So don't worry about it. So what is Jenkins?
CI/CD tool, right?
CI/CD tool.
Yeah.
So let's say you have created a test suite, and now your client want to see your test execution. he want to execute the same build that you have created, or same job that you have created, maybe a regression suite, maybe a functional suite. Now client want to execute it as well, and client want to see what all reports are getting generated, everything, all test cases are getting passed or not. So he want to see all the execution. But client is not a technical person. And let's say I'm sitting in India and a client is sitting in US. So how will I give him access to my project? One of the ways, like I can take a remote of his machine and I can install Selenium, Java, Eclipse, all these jar files, everything on his machine, and then I'll ask him to run it from Eclipse. But he's not a very technical person. So what I'll do, I'm gonna give him this Jenkins. The Jenkins is basically a URL, which is mapped to a UI. So Jenkins is basically a UI. You can do CI, CD, a lot of stuffs are there. But for a simple part, so it's like a web page where client can log in by entering his username, password, something like this. Let me show you a practical example of Jenkins as well. So if I go here, and if I write, so we need to start Jenkins services on a dedicated server, a dedicated machine. So right now I'm starting it on my local machine. So if I'm starting it on my local machine, then only I'll be able to access it. But if it is on a company's server, then everyone from throughout the world can access, whosoever has access to that particular server. So it looks something like this. So if I type localhost, because it is on my machine, so you're gonna see a UI something like this. So client will gonna get a username and password. He's gonna click on sign in, and he should be able to see a dashboard like this. So many jobs are there, like data-driven project and some page object model project, robot framework, and number of projects are added over here. So what client will gonna do, it'll just gonna, let's say, click on this particular button, and you'll see build scheduled. So over here, you're gonna see one build will gonna get triggered. And let's see what this build is going to do. If I open this and show you the output.
So Rahul, does the client needs to install the Jenkins?
No, client will only gonna get this URL.
That's it.
Yes. And you can see running test suite. And now launching some Chrome browser, see Chrome browser launched. And now all the navigation, test case execution will gonna take place. The data will be read from Excel. And once the test case execution is done, you can see successfully connected to my SQL server. And now attaching the HTML reports. So these are some extent report that I've attached to the report, to this project. So client will simply gonna click on this extent report. And right now, okay, so right now, why it is not showing, this is because we need to add a flag while starting the server. Just give me a moment. So we just need to add this flag. So once we go to this Jenkins lecture, I'll explain you why we need it. Now, if I start it again.
Rahul, where have we installed this Jenkins software?
Jenkins, for the practice purpose, you can configure it on your machine as well. Otherwise, in your organization, it will be on a dedicated server. So this is basically like a task of a DevOps engineer. So he will gonna set up Jenkins, because Jenkins is not only used by test engineers, it is like majorly used by developers as well. So both dev and test, they use Jenkins. So now let me, I've restarted this. Let me re-log in and show you how the reporting and other things will gonna look like. So client will gonna get this URL only. Client will not gonna get any code or other thing. So you just need to log into the URL. He'll gonna check your build that you have scheduled over here. So in order to run this build, he'll simply gonna click on this. And in some time, you should be able to see the build has started. So in some time, you should be able to see a browser launching and all the test case execution will happen. And in this build itself, he should be able to see the reports, the reporting part, how many test cases pass, how many test cases fail. So all these things he should be able to see it within this build itself. So now I
So
guess
Rahul, for opening Jenkins by the client, he has to open the server also,
no,
Jenkins.jar
he
file.
need not to do anything. He need not to set up any server. You can see this report.
Mhm.
He'll just gonna get this URL. See, right now the URL is localhost. Maybe if it is like com.i or like let's say jenkins.ibm.com. So he just need to enter the URL jenkins.ibm.com and he'll be entering his credentials and he should be able to see all these things. So this thing is already configured in your organization.
So Rahul, in that case, if it is running on the server, someone has to put this suit on that server, right?
Like there are again couple of things. So you can put the entire test suite like the code on that particular server, or you can map it to the GitHub. So you can check in your code on GitHub and then just give the URL of GitHub.
Okay. Somewhere it is
Then,
mapped.
yeah,
right.
it is going to pick the code from there, right? So see all the logs over here. This is again with current timestamp. So we can maintain logs over here as well, right? For each test data, and here like all the graphs, how many test cases pass, how many test cases fail, who's the automation test engineer, organization, build number, everything is captured beautifully. So this is again not done by Selenium. This is not a part of Selenium. This we have integrated with Selenium. So this is done by the reporting is done with the help of extent reports. So we talked about extent report. Then what is this? This is another API. This is another jar file, right? So Jenkins is not a part of Selenium. Jenkins is a separate tool where you can schedule your build. You can do a lot of things. Jenkins is a huge ocean, not only used by automation test engine. There are so many things you can do in Jenkins. So we'll be learning all this configuration, right? Okay, so this is about
Extent
Jenkins.
report and report ng are same.
No, report ng is a different jar file. Extent report is a different jar file. So with report ng, you're going to get a different look and feel of the report, something like this. Let me show you the report ng report as well. So this is report ng. So these are report ng report, something like this, right? Where you can attach screenshot, click on this. See, this is the thumbnail that we can customize it. We can add the detailed exception of what test cases fail, what is skipped, what is passed. So this is a basic report, total pass ratio. And if you want more interactive report with graphs and other things, then you should be using the extent reports. So extent reports are very widely used in the industry. Right.
So Rahul, extent reports was also present in the Jenkins URL. So is that the same or different?
Yeah, this is the same. This is extent report only.
Part of Jenkins only.
This is not a part of Jenkins. We have integrated. See, this extent report is not what Jenkins is showing you. This we have configured to show this name over here as extent report.
Okay, imported the jar file there.
See, there is something called as configure. We're going to do this configuration later on, but just to clear your doubt, this is where we have given the report title. And this report is being picked from our default directory over here and getting published to Jenkins, right? So we'll be starting about this, once we go to Jenkins part. Right, so this is like so many things are there. So we'll be studying all these things step by step. The very first thing is first your base should be built up with core Java, and then we'll be learning Selenium first. So Selenium as in not IDE. Don't focus on IDE. No companies are using IDE. So if IDE is not in use, then what component is being used? So are we using RC, WebDriver, or Grid?
WebDriver.
WebDriver. So what is the difference in these three components? What is Grid? Can anyone tell me what is grid?
For running
Grid
the
is the
test on
multi-node.
multiple browsers, parallel execution,
Okay, is grid used for parallel testing?
not
Is grid
parallel testing, but
Yes, yeah.
to set up those browsers so that everything can be run parallelly. I believe.
everything there? Can I can't I run test case in parallel without using grid?
We can actually, but
So in the grid, we can use the multiple system.
So remote execution. So
Yeah,
grid
remote
is for remote execution.
okay.
So which component is for parallel testing then?
Cross browser.
Parallel testing, TestNG.
Exactly. So TestNG is the framework that through which we can do parallel testing. Right? We can execute our test cases in parallel. Let's say we have 100 test cases. If I run it in a sequence, 1, then 2nd, then 3rd, then 4th. So let's say if one test case is taking 1 minute to execute, then 100 test case is going to take 100 minutes. But if I run all 100 test cases in parallel, then in 1 minute, I'll be able to execute all the 100 test cases. So that is what parallel testing, which is configured in TestNG framework. Now, what is TestNG? So we have frameworks like JUnit or TestNG, right? So initially there was JUnit. I mean, developers are still using JUnit, but in testing, in automation, we use TestNG more because TestNG is quite enhanced as compared to JUnit. So TestNG can do all the tasks that JUnit can do. Plus, it has got so many other features which we required in automation framework. So everywhere in the industry, TestNG is majorly used in automation. So if you take a look at this particular code, it's like 50. Yeah, any questions? Guys, please put yourself on mute if you don't have any questions. Okay. So if you take a look over here, this is somewhere like 50 plus lines of code. And there could be a number of test cases over here. Like verify user is able to navigate to google.com, verify user is able to type into the input field and enter the value as Selenium, verify user is able to click on the button, and n number of test cases are there. But after execution, can we see how many test cases are passed, how many test cases are failed? Are we getting any result over here?
No.
It's not telling us, right? So what is the purpose of this execution then? If this execution is going to take 4 hours, and after 4 hours, I'm not able to see how many test cases are passed, how many test cases are failed, then what is the purpose of automation? In automation, what we are doing, we are automating manual test cases, right? Where we are writing expected is equal to actual, then test case pass, otherwise test case fail. Same thing we need from automation. Like once we execute the entire test suite, if there are 400 test cases, at the end, it should tell us that out of 400, 300 are passed, 100 are failed. And if there are failed, what are the reasons for the failure? This is what we need from automation, right? So right now, when we are executing the code, we are not using any framework, any unit testing framework, like JUnit, like TestNG. Selenium task is not to report pass and fail of the test case. Selenium task is just to navigate to a website, perform click, perform type, right? Do all other actions on the page. But it is not going to tell you that, okay, these are the collection of the actions and these are considered as test case and this is pass or this is fail. It is not going to tell you that. So your framework, TestNG, JUnit, this is going to convert your code to test case or test suite, and then we'll report it as a pass or fail. And what is TestNG? What is JUnit? It's just an API, jar file. So in the same project, if you right click, say build path, add libraries, JUnit, TestNG, next, finish, and you're gonna see TestNG jars are added to the project. So TestNG is just a jar file. Like Selenium is a jar file, we call Selenium as a framework. TestNG is also a framework. It's also called as an API. So collectively, we are adding different jar files, multiple jar files in one single project. Whatever that we want to do, we get a jar file of that particular project, we add it, and we implement the functionality. Now, these days, frameworks are designed in such a way that you can handle UI plus API plus mobile plus database. All these automation, and not just this, plus Windows, all these automation in one single framework you can do. Right? In one single framework, you can automate through Selenium. You can automate the web part. Now, these days, majorly if you talk about e-commerce domain, banking domain, health domain, travel domain, all these domains, like where you have different websites, these websites cannot communicate with, like there are different components in the website. These components cannot communicate if there is no API. Right? If I take an example, let's say if I go to Make My Trip. So this is like a travel domain. And let's say if I search for any flight from, let's say, New Delhi to Dubai, right? And if I click on search, so what is happening over here? I'm gonna see so many results from different flight vendors, right? Let it complete. So you can see I got some results from Indigo. If I go down, I'm gonna see different flight vendors like Etihad Airways. Then n number of airways are there, right? So not just this, you may gonna say Air India and other airlines as well. So right now it's a huge list. But how come Make My Trip is able to get details of all these flight vendors? So how it is able to like get the data from Etihad, how it is able to get the data from like Indigo or Air India? Are these vendors sharing their database with Make My Trip? That is not possible, right?
No.
That is not possible. They're not going to share their database. Now, what happens if I book this flight ticket for this particular time, this particular date? If I book it over here, and then I go to different website, maybe Expedia.com, and I search for the same flight, will I able to book the same seat from that website?
No.
It will not happen, right? So how this thing is happening? So this thing is happening with the help of an API. So Make My Trip, Expedia, there are hundreds of websites which deals in the travel domain, right? It's not like all these vendors are sharing their database to them. And on the runtime, when the flights are getting booked, they are sharing the updated database, right? It is not happening like that. So they have their own API. So something like this is your UI, this is Make My Trip, right? And this is, let's say, Air India, this is Indigo, this is Etihad, different airlines, right? And every airline, they have got their own API. So this Indigo has its own API, and then Air India has its own API, Etihad has its own API. So what is happening is Make My Trip is sending the request to this API. And there is so many authentication, auth 1, auth 2, like it's once you study about the API testing part, you should be able to see all these things. So it is sending the request from the UI itself. The request is sent to the API. This request is being validated. If the request is successful, then it will communicate to the UI of, let's say, backend of this particular like vendor. Let's say this is Indigo. So they have their own database. It will fetch the data from there, and then it will send the results back to this Make My Trip. So same thing is happening with different vendors. It sends the request, and receive the response if the request is authenticated. And on the same time, if a different website, a flight website, like let's say Expedia, if it is sending the request to, let's say, Indigo for the same flight, and if it is already booked over here, then it is going to get the result from the database of Indigo. So in the database, that flight is already booked, right? So the vendor is not sharing the database with all these like flight websites. They're just sharing the API. So it is the UI is sending the request to the API. The API further validates the database and sends the updated result to these websites. So at times it happens like the front end, the UI part is not developed, right? When we talk about like SDLC lifecycle, any project that is being developed, which is the very first thing that is developed? Can anyone tell me? Whether the UI is developed, whether the API is developed, whether the database is created, what is the very first thing that is created?
The database.
API.
Database. Very first thing that is created is the database. And after database, the APIs are created. So at times we have login window, like Facebook login window. You may have seen from different websites, you get an option to log in with your Facebook account, log in with your Google account. So Facebook also shares their API. They don't share their database, right? They just share the API so that the user can log in with Facebook. The user can log in with your Google account, right? So at times, let's say the UI is not developed. The login UI is not developed, but the API in the database is developed. So what company will gonna ask you to test the login API? So login API, you can enter username, you can enter password, and this username and password will be validated from the database. Now here you can do all the permutation combination like you do in a UI part. You enter valid username, valid password, invalid username, invalid password. You can do all these things with API test as well. You can create a test data, and then you can hit this API to check if everything is working fine or not. And if a user is successfully logged in, you may gonna get a request, a response like 200 OK. So this is what we do in API testing. We validate the API. We validate the data is coming correctly or not. Means we are testing the login functionality. So later on, when UI is created, a username text box is added, a password text box is added, a submit button is added. So if login API is thoroughly tested, what bugs you will be able to find on the UI? Will you be able to find any functionality related issues?
Very rare.
Functionality is already tested. You'll only be able to see cosmetic issues, maybe some typos, some spelling mistakes, some font issue, something like that only. But you'll not be able to see any issue like user is not able to log in or incorrect user is able to log in. These type of issues you're not going to find. So that is the reason the API testing is also very important. And in a framework, we can add UI through Selenium jar, right? And now companies, they like you are doing manual testing and then you're doing automation through Selenium. Same way in API as well, you can manually test. How? Using PostMan. So PostMan is a tool which is generally used to manually hit these APIs and get the response. But now companies, they want, if you're doing automation of UI, you should automate the API part as well. And for API automation, company don't want to invest in any different tool. Like SOAP UI is one of the tools through which you can automate APIs as well. But companies, they want everything should be open source and everything should remain in the same project. So what we get is REST assured. It is an API. So it's just a jar file. Like Selenium is a jar. You just search for REST assured jar from here. So go to the main. This is MVN repository. MVN means Maven repository. So Maven manages the jar files. Jar files are called as dependencies. So Maven is a build tool, plus it is a dependency management tool. So if you search for REST assured over here, you're going to see REST assured testing of REST services. You go over here and download this jar file. And once you download it, you can import it to your project. Now you can call the REST classes and you can hit your APIs as well. While running your Selenium test, you can also hit the APIs and get the response and can validate it from the UI as well. So now you can see, you can do this, where is that? You can do UI testing, you can do API testing, even you can do database testing. Database, we have discussed, like we can add MySQL jar file, we can add Oracle jar file, MongoDB jar file, and we can hit the query, we can get the data from the database and validate it from the UI part. So all these three things can be easily integrated in one single project. Now, again, if you know Make My Trip, if you know Expedia, then not just UI, they have their mobile application as well, right? They have their mobile application as well. And most of the time, when we are traveling, we don't carry our laptop along with us. So what we do, we generally open up the mobile app, we search for flights, we book the tickets, we enter credit card information, debit card information, right? All the payment gateways we use. So if the testing of UI is important, testing of mobile applications are also important. And we manually test mobile application, we can automate that part as well. And for automation, it's not like we have to learn something from very scratch. So whatever code that you have written over here, you are using Chrome driver. If I change this to Android driver, this code will gonna run on Android. Just that I need to add one additional jar file, which Appium is going to provide me. So if you go over here and search for Appium, search for Java client. So Appium has got a Java client. See, Java client of Appium mobile web driver. See, so this is generated from
Java
WebDriver only. Yeah.
API remains same for the mobile application and the browser.
No, for browser you use Selenium jar. For mobile you use Appium jar. So this is the Appium
this is
jar.
for the testing perspective. I'm asking
For
from the
automation.
development.
This is for
From the
automation.
No. If developer is writing APIs, so do they write different for the browser and for the
This is a
mobile?
different project. This is all in all created by a different company. Selenium is created by a different set of developers. So Appium, whosoever has created Appium, has actually taken the classes of Selenium library itself. And he has created and added some additional classes and created a new project which can automate iOS and Android part. Similarly, if we talk about REST assured, it is created by another organization, and that is only for API testing.
So Rahul, I think Sonia is asking that whether we can use the APIs which were used in web application, the same APIs can be used in mobile application also. I think Sonia
we can use what?
I mean, I think she is asking that whether we can use same APIs to both web app and mobile app.
No. For Selenium, you will be using the Selenium API. For mobile automation, you will be using the API.
From development perspective, like
from development perspective, I'm asking.
I think only same APIs can be used, I think.
See, if some company can come up with an API that can handle both mobile, Selenium, API, database, all in one project, that can also be done. So yeah, it completely depends on the developer. If developer combines all these things in one single project and create one single jar file, and he's gonna hand over that jar file to you.
I think Sonia is asking, like, suppose we are having an application, okay, and development team has created the web application, okay, and it is having say 100 APIs, okay. They have developed 100 APIs, right, for that application, functionality wise, correct? So when they will develop the mobile version of that web application, whether they can use all those 100 APIs only, or they need to develop new APIs.
See, okay, I got your point. See, if we talk about web application development, that is done using different frameworks. Maybe Hibernate, Start, Spring, right? If it is being developed in Java, maybe the website is developed in Ruby, or maybe Ruby on Rails, or maybe different language they have used. And if we talk about mobile application development, that for Android, it is done in Android Studio. So that is a different platform.
Yeah. So Sonia, to answer your question about what I have experienced in my projects, they have used, common APIs in both. Okay. And for mobile application, they have created some additional APIs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for
common
if we talk about mobile platform, mobile development platform, then for Android, we only have Android Studio. For iOS, we have something called as Xcode, which is provided by Apple itself. So Apple has their own framework to develop iOS application. And that has nothing to do with the web applications. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's right. But yeah, for automation, we can integrate all these things in one project. We can automate UI part using Selenium. We can automate API part using REST Assured. We can automate database using MySQL, SQL, all these jars. We can automate mobile part as well using the Appium jar. And then REST, if I talk about Windows, you can automate this notepad as well. Appium, they have created one wrapper called as WinApp Driver. So this is created by Appium itself, see Windows application driver. And through this, if you install this, you can write a code, see, using with Appium. And the code looks similar. You can automate alarm, clock, calculator, notepad, any desktop-based application. And if you check this samples, then it is available in, again, C#, Java. This is the Java code. And this Java code is somewhat similar to what we have used in Selenium. So see, find element, something like this, find element by name, find element. If you know a little bit Selenium, then you should be able to recognize this find element thing, find element, click, find element, click. And if you look at this code, we are doing the same stuff over here. See,
are we covering Appium also in this session, though? That will
no, Appium is all in all a different course. It's again, see, REST Assured is a different course.
Okay,
Appium is a different course. But yes, if you know Selenium, then like learning Appium will be just like 1 week task for you. And I have already covered a detailed lecture on Appium. So if you go through this, there's a whole big library on Appium that covers Android, iOS, and see, this is the one. So it covers a complete Android, iOS, mobile automation frameworks, everything is covered. So you can follow these lectures. You should be able to easily work with Appium.
Okay, thank you.
Right. So now you can see, if you are using Selenium, you can integrate all these things in one single project. Right? That is the reason why Selenium is very popular in the industry and why companies are moving to this open source world. Because if I use QTP, if I am restricted to UFT, then I can use only features which are provided by that tool. Maybe that tool is not capable of automating APIs, not capable of automating mobile, not capable of automating database. Then I have to rely for these automation on different automation tools. Then I need to invest on SOAP UI for API testing. Then there's a paid tool for mobile automation, which is called as Perfecto. So I may need to invest in that tool as well, right? So I keep on investing in different tools. So best thing is get started with Selenium, build up your base, and then you can down the line add all these things in one single framework. So that is the reason why I mentioned that if you are starting your career in automation, the very first thing you're picking up is UI. But UI is not the end of the world, right? In companies, the demand is more of UI plus API, right? Why not UI plus mobile? Because if you know UI, you know mobile part. So once you start going through the Appium lectures, you should be able to understand that whatever code that we have written over here, same code is going to work for Appium as well. But rest assured,
the first
it's a
one
different library.
being like a Java core, and then come up with the Selenium, then we can go explore other areas. Is that correct?
Yes. On top of this, the very first thing is core Java. Sorry, Java.
Okay.
Core Java. So first you should be comfortable with core Java, and then you should be learning UI, then API, and then mobile. Then you can do all these integrations. Right.
So
And
Rahul, how is Windows integrated? You told about UI, API, mobile, and database. What about Windows?
So same thing. Windows, we have WinApp API. Like you search for WinApp driver, you're gonna get a jar file for this. WinApp file. So it is not very much in use. So I guess.
Right. Because even I didn't know. Windows testing.
Yeah, Windows testing is not very much in use. So that's the reason people. But yeah, there is a jar file which you can check it from here. So this is Java. I think it is inbuilt in Appium itself. They've not added any additional jar file. So maybe you're gonna get some methods in the Appium library itself for WinApp driver.
Okay, it is part of dependency in POM XML. Okay.
So what this pom.xml, why this is required, let us understand that concept, because that concept is also very important. See, although it's a demo session, we are not covering any coding part. So don't worry if you are finding it little complex to understand what Maven is, what Jenkins is. We are going to repeat this stuff again once you are done with the core Java part. Then you'll be very much clear with it. But just these sessions are just to make you understand that Selenium is not the only thing that you need to learn. There are so many integrations that take place whenever we are building up a live project, right? So now why Maven is required?
So Rahul, before you go further, I just want to understand one thing. So you talk about UI, API, and then mobile, and then database, and then Windows. I could relate what those things are used for. What window is used for?
Windows, see, like if we talk about UFT can automate Windows-based application. Now there was a time when we don't have much web applications. We have more desktop applications that you install on your desktop. Right? So you do testing on desktop applications as well. So not just manually, you automate those applications as well. Even if we talk about any application, let's say we talk about this calculator, this is also an application, right?
Yeah.
So you want to test it, so you'll be hitting all these keys and you'll be doing testing. Same way you can write a code, you can automate these steps. So this is a window-based application. Selenium is not going to automate this. So you need to be dependent on any other tool. And WinApp driver
got it.
is a project that can automate this part.
Thank you so much.
All right. Okay. So now in our project, we manage hundreds of jar files. Whatever that is feasible in Java, if we have to achieve something, if it is not a part of Selenium, then we search for any project that supports that functionality. If we get that project, we get the jar file, we add it to our project and implement that functionality. This is how it works, right? But if I take a broader view, let's say in an automation team, there are, let's say, there are 8 to 10 testers working in a same project, right? So many automation test engineers are working. It's a big project. And every tester is responsible for automating its own module. Let's say this is tester A, and this tester has got a task to automate login window, right? This is tester B, and he got a task to automate user registration interface. Same way, this is tester C, tester D. They are automating their own modules. And whatever code that they are writing, at the end of the day, they have to check in that code to a centralized repository. This repository could be SVN, could be GitHub, whichever your organization is using. Majorly these days, GitHub is being used because it is a cloud-based platform, right? So many companies are using GitHub. So at the end of the day, tester A, tester B, tester C, whosoever has written any piece of code will be checking it to a centralized repository. Now, why it is required? Let's say whatever code tester A has written, his laptop gonna get crashed. So all the code is not gonna go away with the laptop, right? He can again retrieve the code by taking a checkout from this repository. He's gonna get everything, whatever all testers have written, he's gonna get the complete code on his machine once he takes the checkout from here. And this process is not only followed by testers, automation testers, even developers follows the same process. Whatever code they write on a daily basis, at the end of the day, they have to check in that code, right? Maybe tester B leaves the organization, so he's not going to take away the complete code with him, right? And let's say tester E joins the company as a new joinee, and he wants to see what all things are going inside the project. So he can take a fresh checkout and he's going to get the complete code. So that is how the process works in SDLC. At end of the day, whatever code that we have written, we have to check into a centralized repository, right? And very next day when we come to the office, we can take a fresh checkout of the code and we can sync our project with the latest code. Now, during checking the project, in a project, we use a lot of jar files, right? Let's say this is a Selenium project. So we have one jar for Selenium. We have one jar for database. We have one jar for log4j. We have one jar for, let's say, POI, for Java mail. So many jar files we have added. Selenium, we have added the version, let's say 4.5. Database, we have added some version like 8. Log4j, we have added 1.2.17. POI, we have added 5.2. Java mail, we have added 1.6.2. So every project has got its own version. When Selenium was started initially, the version was Selenium 1. Then Selenium 2 came into the market, and this version went up to the release 2.53.1. So 2 is the release number, 5.3.1 is the build number, right? Whenever there are bug fixes happening, there are new features being added. So the version keeps on changing, like 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, and this is the same thing that happens in the software development lifecycle. So you see new, whenever the code is committed and pushed to staging or pushed to production, you'll always find a new build number generated. And whenever there's a major change in the project, maybe the technology, maybe the language, then they're gonna update this to Selenium 3. And this release went up to 3.1 for 1.59. So this was the last release of Selenium 3. And then again, some enhancement in the technology came, and then Selenium 4 was started. And this release went up. The current one, this is ongoing. So this is the latest one is, I guess, 4.7.2. This is the latest one that we have recently downloaded. So we'll be working on latest one only, right? We're not going to use any previous version. So now this is about one project. If we talk about database, log, POI, these are also different Java projects. And they also have their releases, right? So every now and then you're going to see, right now it's 4.7.2. So we'll be using latest one. What if 4.8 comes into the market? So we need to remove 4.5 or 4.7, and we need to add the latest one. Same thing with database, same thing with POI, same thing with Java mail. Now let's assume all the testers are using the same version of Java. All of a sudden, what happened? Let's say we are using 4.5. Now 4.7 came into the market. As a tester A, I have removed 4.5 and I've started using 4.7.2. Now, whenever there's a new release, there might be some bug fixes. There might be some new features. Maybe in 4.7, there are some new classes which were introduced. So what I did, I removed 4.5, I added 4.7, and there were some new classes that were introduced. I've implemented those classes in my project. Now, rest team members are still using 4.5. At the end of the day, everyone will gonna commit the code. Now, very next day, when everyone takes a fresh checkout of the code, all these users will gonna face some issues. Why? Because they're still using 4.5 jar file and I'm using 4.7. See, whenever we check in the code, we only check in the code. We don't check in the jar files. This is because the code that we are writing, it can be merged to one single project, but jar files cannot be merged. Code is in KB, jar files are in MBs. We never commit the jar files. We only commit the code, right? So whenever everyone is taking fresh checkout of the code, everyone start facing some issues because they are still using 4.5 version. And I've added some new classes from 4.7 version, which is not available in 4.5. So they'll start facing issues. So what they're gonna do, they'll remove this jar file. They'll first identify what the issue is. They'll remove the jar file, download the latest jar file, and sync it with their project. And that is how they'll be fixing their project. Now, it's not just about one single jar in the project. Maybe this guy has updated POI to 5.5. This guy has updated, let's say, Java Mail to 1.7. This guy has added 3-4 additional jar files. Now, what will happen when the next day you are going to take a fresh checkout? You'll see so many errors in the project, and the whole day you are going to waste in fixing these errors. And this is not just a task of one day. This is an everyday task. So how are you going to manage this thing? So that is where your dependency management tool comes into the picture. Dependency management. Right? So our project is dependent on these jars. And we have a tool to manage these dependencies, which is called as Maven. So Maven is a dependency management tool, plus it's a build tool. So building part, we're going to take a look at it later on. Right? So right now we are going to focus on the dependency management part. So what we're going to do in order to fix this issue, we need to stop adding the jar files manually to the project. Manually, as in what we are doing, we are downloading Selenium jar, we are right-clicking on the project, we are going to build path, we are clicking on add external archives, and then we are picking the jars one by one, and then we are adding it. Same way, if we have to remove the old jar, we'll be removing it one by one, and then we'll be adding the new jars. So this is a manual process. This process has to be automated. For that, you need to configure Maven. Maven configuration is very simple. So what you need to do, simply go to Google and type download Maven. So whatever steps that we are following right now, everyone has to do the same process on their machine before next week, right? So these steps are very simple. Don't do it right now because everything is being recorded. You're going to get the recording of it. Then watch this video once again and try to do the same configuration. Go to this website, and from here, you need to download this zip file, binary zip archive. This will work for both Mac and Windows. So download this zip. Once you download it, you're going to get it like this. Security drive software. So I've extracted it over here. You're going to get a zip file, extract the zip file, you get a folder like this. Open this folder, you get another Apache Maven folder, open this, You'll not see anything installable in Maven. Maven comes as a batch file. If you open this bin folder, this is your Maven. Now, what you need to do, you need to configure Maven globally on your machine in a form of an environment variables, like we did with JDK. We've configured Java in environment variables. Same thing you'll be doing with Maven. Copy this path, the root folder path. Click on edit. Type edit and click on this environment variable. Create a new variable with the name mvn_home and paste this path, the root folder path. You have to do everything in the system variable. Don't do anything in user variable. So once you do this, click on OK, and you'll see Maven home is added over here. Then go to path variable and at the end type %mvn_home %, and Maven is where it is inside the bin folder. So just give \bin over here, like I've already done it. So I'm not going to redo it. So once you're done with this, close this, close this, close this, open up command prompt and type mvn -version and press enter. And if you see this message, it means Maven is successfully configured on your machine. Now you are good to use Maven. So you have done global configuration of Maven. Maven comes inbuilt in your Eclipse as well. We have Maven inside Eclipse as well. But that Maven is not going to work till the time you have done with this global configuration. If you don't do this global configuration, this Maven of Eclipse is not going to work. Now, how we are going to use Maven? We are not going to, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, but my Maven version is 3.8.7. Yours is 3.8.1. So is it okay?
That's fine. That shouldn't matter.
Okay, fine.
Right. So now close this Java project and create a new Java project. But this time we'll be following industry standard because industry is actually using Maven. Maven is very widely used in projects, right? So instead of clicking on Java project, click on project. So there's another wrapper over Maven, which is called as Gradle. So some companies are using Gradle as well, but we are not going to use Gradle. We're going to keep things simple. Maven is very simple and majorly projects are using Maven. So you can see Maven over here, Maven. Expand this, click on Maven project, click on next. And here, check create a simple project. See, we are creating a simple Java project only, but now we are following some Maven standards. Now click on next. You're going to see this template, which is asking you for group ID. Now, group ID is generally your domain name. Like if my website is way2automation.com, then I'm going to write it in reverse order, com.w2a. Artifact ID is a project name. So project name is, let's say, Selenium testing, right? You can write any project name. And version. So you can give a version to your project. Like Selenium project has also some version. Every project has got some version. Same way you can define a version of your project. And once you compile it, you want to generate a jar file out of this project, or you want to generate a var file out of this project, and number of options. So just keep it by default as it is. You should not be doing any changes. So these are the two things that you need to focus on: group ID and artifact ID. That's it. Rest of the things you need not to worry about it. Simply click on finish and you're going to see one Java project created. This is also a Java project. This is also a Java project. But with this project, you'll see a small J written over here, a simple Java project. But here you'll see M and J, very small letters. This is Maven Java project. When you expand this project, you'll find JRE system library, SRC folder, and then these are the libraries that you yourself have added manually. So normally you get SRC, you get JRE system library. But if you expand the Maven project, now you're going to see JRE system library as it is, like we have it over here. But you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4 SRC folder. Now, what are these 4 SRC folders? There are no 4 SRC. There is only one SRC folder. Inside SRC folder, you find main and test folder. Inside main, you'll find Java resource. Inside test, you find Java resource. Let me show it to you from the physical location. So if I go to this project, Selenium testing, if I open it, you see just one SRC folder, not 4. If you open this, you'll find one main, one test. See, you see 2 main, 2 test, but these are one main, one test. If you open this, you find Java resource. If you open test, you'll find Java resource. This is how things are organized in a project. Right? These main folders are for the development part. Development or business logics, business specifications, all those things related to development will be coded inside the main folders. Anything related to testing, automation testing, unit testing will be coded inside the test folders. In this as well, we have one Java, one resource. Anything which is not a Java class, this is a Java class. Anything which is not a Java class will go inside resource, like your Excel file, text file, notepad file, log file, property file, XML file, JSON file. All these will gonna go inside resources. Anything related to a class like Java file will gonna go inside the Java folder. So since we are starting with automation, we'll be working only with this SRC test Java. And if I use any Excel file or other things, I'm going to keep it inside resources. We're not going to use these 2 folders right now. That is how things are organized. And in this as well, you can create one folder of your own. So you can right click and say, I want to create a new folder with the name test cases. Folders are called as packages in Java. So I create another package called as test cases. That's it. And inside I can create a new class where I want to start with automation. So I'm going to name this class as, let's say, test browser. I want to launch a browser and check this main method. That's it. And now same code, I can write it over here. Whatever that we have written over here, I want to launch Chrome and I want to navigate to google.com. So I'll just copy this and I'm going to paste it here. That's it. But this code is not working. Why this is not working? Why we are getting error over here?
We haven't added the dependency.
We haven't added the dependency, the jar file. Over here, we have the Selenium jar, but here we don't have the Selenium jar. So what we're going to do, either I right click, go to build path, add external archive, and add this, where is the Selenium jar? This is the Selenium jar. See, I've added it and the errors are gone. But this is again, I've added it manually. I don't want to add it manually. So I'm going to remove it from here. The purpose of using Maven is to automate this process. So what I'll do, Maven generates something which is called as a pom.xml file. If you open this pom.xml file, you see some XML code over here. This is your project information, your project, your group ID of your project, artifact ID of your project, version of your project. Same way, every Java project has got these 3 information. Even if you talk about Selenium, Selenium has got a group ID with Selenium website. Initial Selenium website was seleniumhq.org. So the group ID, they have created something like org.seleniumhq.selenium. An artifact ID they have created like Selenium Java, and version is the current version. So these 3 information you'll get with Selenium on the Selenium website as well. Right? So this project is dependent on Selenium and lot other projects. So what I'm going to do, I'll add one tag which is called as dependencies. And here I'm going to add Selenium dependency. So where are you going to get it? Either you can get it from Selenium website, or just go to the centralized repository Maven. Here you're going to get all Java projects. So just search for Selenium and you see Selenium Java. Click on this and you can see so many versions: 4.7.2, 7.1, right? 4.1. So if I pick any one of these, let's say I pick 4.1.1, I'm just going to copy this and paste it over here and I'll hit save. So what happens as soon as I hit save, you'll see the errors are gone. And if I expand this, you'll see all different jar files are added to my project. See, so many jars are added, right? And this version is 4.1.1. Maybe I don't want to use this version. I want to use a different version that is 4.1.2. I'll change this to 4.1.2. I'll hit save and within few seconds, you'll see the version is going to change to 4.1.2. How fast, right? Maybe now I want to use log4j as well. So I'll search for log4j. I go over here. I'll click on this. I got this dependency. I'll just copy this and paste it in pom.xml and hit save. And within few seconds, you'll see the log4j. Where is log4j? Log4j added, right? I want to add MySQL dependency, MySQL jar file. I'll simply search for MySQL. This is MySQL connector. And this is the version 8.0.131. And I'll add it over here. And I'll hit save. And it's done.
So Rahul, this pom.xml file is only present when we add a Maven project.
Exactly.
Not the
existing.
It doesn't get added in the normal Java project.
No,
okay. There we have to add the external reference library.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
But now you can see I added MySQL. Immediately it got added. I'm changing Selenium versions. Different jar files are getting updated very quickly. So how fast these things are getting downloaded? Is it like I'm using 5G connection? It's not like that, right? So these jars are not getting downloaded on the runtime at this moment. These jars are already available in my machine. So it is being picked up from there. So when you configure Maven for the very first time, Maven is going to create a local repository inside your C drive, users, and your profile. You'll see a .m2 folder. If you open this, you'll find a repository folder, local repository. Open this, and these all organization jars are already added. If I talk about Selenium, Selenium is org. Then we have Selenium HQ. Let's see where Selenium HQ is. Go down. This is Selenium HQ. Then we have Selenium. We have Selenium Java. Let's see where is Selenium Java. And I already have all these versions on my machine. If I switch in between any of these versions, it is first going to check it from my machine. If it is there, it is going to add it from there. If not, then only it is going to download. See, I don't have 4.7.2. So if I write 4.7.2 and hit save, so now you'll see it is still building it. And what it is doing, it is downloading it from the centralized Maven repository. And if you see, still it is showing 4.1.2. Till that time, it won't download completely. Now it is changed. And now in the local repository, you're going to see a folder added just now itself. So now if I switch between any of the version and the latest version, it is going to look on my machine first. If it won't find, then it is going to download it from the remote repository, that is MVN repository. And then now we got the jars. And now whatever code that is written over here, If you run this code, it's going to work absolutely fine. So still jars are being downloaded. Now let's see with the latest jar. See, browser launched, navigate to google.com. So this is how you'll be automating the download of dependency. Now, at the end of the day, when you have to check in the code, you're not going to check in the jar files. You'll be checking this pom.xml file. Whosoever check out this project and import in his Eclipse, automatically all the jars mentioned in this pom.xml will gonna get added to his project. So even let's say whatever coding that we are going to do at the end of the day, I'm going to share this project with you. So what you need to do in your project explorer, in your package explorer, you just need to right click, go to import, click on journal, click on existing project into workspace, click on next. And then you need to give the path of the project that you download. And automatically everything will be added without any errors. So if you search for any project, let's say I want to add any project, I'll add it from a previous workspace. Let's say I've given you this project, this data-driven project. So you just unzip it, save it in any drive of your machine, then select this project. You're going to get this project, click on finish, and see automatically right now you're seeing errors because it is building the project. Within few seconds, you're going to see all the errors are gone and see the project is added, and with all the dependencies, everything is added. This is how you will be adding the project, whichever code that I'm going to give you, you can, as it is, you can add it in your Eclipse like this. So that is what the main use of Maven is, to manage the dependencies. Right, building part is something else. Building part as in like if on the real time, we have already seen an example that client wants to run your code. So right now the code is built using Eclipse. Build as in when we click on run button, it compiles your Java code, convert it into class file, and then execute it. But how client is going to execute it? Are we going to install Java on his machine, Eclipse on his machine to build the project? No. We have given him Jenkins. So if you have seen what Jenkins is actually doing, so when we execute the Jenkins job, if you have seen this output for this particular build, if you look at the output, what Jenkins is doing, Jenkins is calling Maven itself. And Maven is building the test. See, Maven is calling pom.xml, and this all the task is done by Maven. Then Maven is calling your TestNG framework. And then TestNG is calling your Selenium framework. And then Selenium is launching your browser. And then you're connecting to MySQL server as well. And then you're integrating HTML report as well. So here the building task is not done with Jenkins. We have integrated Maven with Jenkins. So Jenkins is only calling Maven from your machine. And then rest of the execution is done with the help of Maven, which is a build tool. So here Maven is acting as a build tool, and here Maven is acting as a dependency management tool. So that is what Maven is.
Rahul, can you please explain what is a build tool?
Build tool is something, let's say, this Eclipse is also a build tool. When you write a code over here, you need to build this code in order to execute it, right? But let's say I want my client to run this code. So there are two things I can do. Either I install Eclipse on his machine, I give him the complete code, and then I'll ask him to click on the run button to execute the code. But client is not very technical. But still he wants to execute the code. He wants to see how the execution is done. So what I can do, I'm not going to use Eclipse for building it. I can build it something like this way as well. If I go over here, I'll show it to you. I just go over here and see right now I've not opened up Eclipse. I'm simply going to click on this, double click on this. And now this thing is done with the help of Maven. Now Maven is building my code. It is compiling the source files and converting it to .class files, the way that how Java works. And see, all the execution is done and then complete. So see, Eclipse is not
Maven
building
would
it.
be on.
Maven is building it. Yeah.
So should Maven be on the client system?
No, if you are giving him Jenkins, then Maven is already configured in Jenkins.
So now this runner has to be created, right?
Yeah, this runner we have created, but this runner is going to work only on our machine. It is not going to work on client's machine. Right, we'll learn all these steps of creating runner and configuring Jenkins and scheduling the build. All those things we are going to study step by step. But before that, we should learn the automation part first. Right. So I guess we should stop up till here because the next part we are going to cover is completely related to finding elements and writing the code. And people who have joined new, I have not gone through the core Java part, may not be able to understand the coding part right now. So we're going to start with the coding part from our next session. And students who are joining new will be going to the core Java sessions first from next week. So for the core Java, new WhatsApp group will be created and the new meeting invite will be shared. For Selenium, I guess I've already shared the meeting invite with you guys. Otherwise, what I'll do, I'll again gonna reshare it in your group itself. So you may gonna find it in your group description as well, in the WhatsApp group description. So you'll be joining through that particular link for your Selenium sessions.
Rahul, core Java would be dealt by somebody and Selenium would be held by somebody again? Or
Selenium, I myself will be taking complete Selenium, all frameworks, I myself will be covering. Just there is a different instructor for core Java who will be covering your core Java concept, because Selenium and Java, both batches are going to run in parallel, same time, 8 to 10. So that is the reason there's a different instructor for Java. So first you will be going through the core Java part, and then you'll be coming to my batch. As soon as your Java finished, you'll be moving to the Selenium part.
Okay, so time conflicts, right? 6 to 8 or something?
6 to 8 is API testing and DevOps that are running. So you can join those batches in parallel. And then 8 to 10 will be Java and Selenium. So students who are new will be attending Java part. Students who have already completed Java will be attending Selenium part. Same time.
Okay, but no, so 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock is that, you know, some batch will be like running, right? This particular Selenium batch would be running, right?
Yeah, Selenium will be running at 8 to 10. Core Java will also be running at 8 to 10.
Okay, once after the core Java is complete in that particular batch, so you will again take.
Yes, we'll be moving that batch to Selenium part at 8 o'clock.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Right. All right, guys.
Hearing the recording.
Yeah.
You'll be hearing the recording for this session, right?
Yeah, recording I'll be giving it to you. I've already uploaded yesterday's session. If you, I'll show you the path where I've uploaded.
Yeah, yesterday's session was there.
Yeah, so it's uploaded at the very end as I explained. So if you go over here and at the end, you'll see this. So second session, I'm gonna upload it here itself. All right.
Yeah.
Any more questions, guys?
Thanks, sir.
Sure. So guys, I hope you have enjoyed the session.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi Rahul, I have one more doubt here.
Yeah.
Hi. On what basis Log4j have you chosen? Because I see 2.9 version in the repository.
See, there are two Log4j. One is Log4j1 and one is Log4j2. So you can use either.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, our purpose, see, Log4j is quite huge. So all your server related logs and everything can be generated using Log4j. So majorly when developers are coding something, they maintain their logs as well for all the exceptions and everything. right? For us as an automation, we just need logging for all the actions that we have performed. So that can be easily integrated using Log4j1, or in case you want to use Log4j2, same logs will be generated using Log4j2 as well. There is no change in the logging part.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Rahul.
Yeah.
Rahul, hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when we search on the Maven repository, so we find earlier version also. So we should to whom we should give the priority? I mean, the one which is used the most, downloaded the most, or what?
See, for Selenium, we are going to use latest version only. For Log4j, you can use Log4j1, or you can use the latest Log4j2, whichever is that.
Because what someone told me that whatever has been, you downloaded more times, we can bang on that. Is that okay?
I mean, see, logging part ultimately it remains same. I mean, I have created one recording for Log4j2 as well. If
And
you
maybe
you'll find it same.
Yeah, the latest one might have some
one as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any more questions, guys? So we are good to wind up. I hope to see you guys next weekend. Right? Till then, enjoy the rest of the weekend. It's almost over now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul. Good night.
Yeah, sure.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night.